Hey YouTube, it's your boy Widgie here, coming at you with some more Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition, and we have the public update preview for March. It's been many months. There hasn't been any kind of sign of any kind of update coming, but it finally hit yesterday, I believe, and I gotta say, guys, first impressions is I think they've just overdone it again. I think it's a huge overkill on the changes they want to make. I think it's way too sort of widespread, and there's just some things in there which personally I don't think are necessary, and the majority of the community agree as well. Some of them are just not necessary at all, and they sort of leave you just sort of scratching your head like, what's that about? Why? You know? So let's jump into it and see how we get on here. Now, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in minute detail here because there is a lot of stuff, so I will leave the link down below to the public update preview detail, the full list of everything. You can find it there and look through yourself. So let's have a little scroll down. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's quite zoomed in, and we can get to the first point of view, which is a general sort of update, which is they now finally have treaty decks for all civilizations. So when you're starting up the game, if you're new, you have obviously the beginner, you have the land, you have the water, I think, or something like that. You will now have treaty decks available to you. So it's a bit better late than never, but there it is. We can see here that there's merchants and the Uruks, however you pronounce it now, appear in fishing boats for the Ottoman and Dutch. Just a cosmetic change. And then we have a look at cards here. So cards, the War Hut Travois card is now basically the hit point improvement has been reduced from 20% to 15%. Fur Trade, which is like the food upgrade card, now converts 1.2 times stockpile food into coin, down from 1.25. So once again, another slight nerf to that card. The Medicine Wheel, effectiveness of healers at the Community Plaza is reduced to 35%, down from 50. So that's kind of big. I think that card is available to Inca, I believe, so, and also to Lakota, so quite a significant nerf there. Mercenary Loyalty tooltip updated, now correctly discounts the cost. Okay, I'm just having a quick flick through here. And finally, we have the Engineering School no longer reduces the train time of the Grenadier Troopers and Abbas Gunners. And the Infinite 17 Mayan Allies no longer shares a build limit with the Mayan Holcon Spearman, which is trained at a Mayan trading post. So there we go. So there's some of the main cards that will sort of spread over various civs. We do have technologies here as well. If we just scroll down a little bit, we can see technologies here. And it says several technologies now get properly auto-researched upon starting the game in post or industrial post-imperial. And I'm just having a quick look. I don't think there's too many things here that are a great big deal, to be honest with you. So those ones, guys, as I say, link is down below. You can have a quick look through those. Now, if we move to the units and buildings, we can see experience bounties. So they've corrected the build and kill XP bounties of several units to correctly fit the unit cost, where you can see them right there. Ranged shock infantry. So ranged shock infantry, guys, in my eyes is essentially like ranged light cavalry, essentially, but it's not, if that makes sense. Kind of a strange categorization, but it says previously hidden bonus damage against ranged shock infantry units like Eagle Runner Knights. There we go. So that's one of them, for example. Basically, an infantry unit that is a ranged infantry unit, but does bonus damage to heavy cav. That's basically what ranged shock infantry is. So it says, sorry, I'll repeat it again. So previously hidden bonus damage against ranged shock infantry units like the Eagle Runner Knight is now visible in the statistic panel through the introduction of a class icon. So it's showing that, which is great. The advanced hot air balloon can no longer be deleted. Now we start to get into some of the other things here, which we can see. The Arrow Knights, Captured Mortar, Hand Mortar, the Haracha the Mortar, all basically these units, they now inflict 2 times bonus damage against walls. I don't know what they had before or if they did have anything. I have no idea, but that's going to be pretty decent for, you know, if you're playing against turtle civs that like to wall up a lot. If you're playing against my boy Revnak that loves walls, this is going to be a great addition for you for those units. So that's fantastic to see that. You can see some other ones here. I'm just having a quick look at them at the moment. We're going to scroll down because there's quite a few sort of unique units here. But we do, as we scroll down, guys, you're coming to quite a little, sort of chunky bit here we can see where we have native trading post. The line of sight has actually been reduced on the native one there. So it's from going to 9 from 12. The lands connects, so they now cost 2 population, down from 3. Their hit points and damage now upgraded from Commerce Age base values, and we can see current values are restored upon reaching the Fortress Age. We also have other things like the Levied Bowman is now light infantry as archaic and foot archers, and this is a big one here, guys. This is kind of a big mechanical change and adjustment to light infantry units. So basically your skirmishers, your foot archers, their ranged damage now the multiplier has been reduced further against heavy cavalry and hand shock infantry. So basically your hand shock infantry is going to be your Chimmy runner, your Coyote runner, your shuttle warrior, and obviously heavy cav is heavy cav. So we can see here that there's some significant further sort of reduction here to the light infantry and how well they do. And this could be a big problem against civs that currently struggle against heavy cav civs. For example, the two that come out for me is Russia and China. So Russia do struggle and they will obviously have to then decide to go to cav archers. But when you have like mass strelets or mass skirms, sometimes your mass skirm unit would be able to do okay-ish against a few hand cavalry units. But now this is going to change quite a lot. It's going to be even more difficult for light infantry units to do any kind of damage against heavy cav and shock infantry. So a big one there, which is quite important. And if we go down, there's some further things like there's a reduction to the Javelin Rider HP reduction, which I think is fairly decent. The healer here, gather rate of the community plaza is now 20% down from 25. So once again, that's going to be a big impact for Inca players, for Lakota players. I don't know if there's any change to warrior priests. I don't think there is. I can't see anything down here at all. But we can also see that the warriors now grant 10 XP to the enemy player when they're defeated. So you get a XP bounty when you take down the warriors. And I believe the warriors are the units that are spawned from the community plaza for the Aztec player. So there's been a lot of that kind of spamming going on. And that's quite an interesting change there. There are other ones here, of course, guys. I'm not going to be going through all of them. So make sure to check out the link down below and you can go through them as well. Moving on to the specific civs. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything for all civs, but I'm going to be just sort of giving my quick sort of summary and overview of them. So let's kick it, let's go. So Aztecs here, the High Priest of Istilton, the gather rate of the warrior priest has now been increased by 10%. And it's saying it's down from 20. So you've got to be careful how they sort of word this. So originally it was 20%, now it's 10%. So it's sort of been reduced to 10%, down from 20. That's kind of how you need to say it. So sometimes this can be a little bit confusing. This card is quite a popular one because it also buffs your Explorer, and some people were using this when they were going for a sort of warrior priest boom play. So is that going to be a card that they're going to go for now? I don't know. Potentially not. We shall see. The infinite 1300 coin in age 4. The arrival time is increased significantly now. So that's 60 seconds. It used to be 40. And also the card will arrive 40 seconds in 40 seconds due to the recent acceleration of Imperial Age card arrivals. Okay, all right. And there's one here, there's a Rebellion card. There's been a slight reduction to that. Units, the only two that are effective for Aztec are the Eagle Runner and the Warrior Priest. The Eagle Runner is quite a big one because the Eagle Runner has been getting hammered it's just been getting nerf after nerf over the last 2 or 3 patches because obviously it was quite a troublesome unit. Now it's got another nerf where there is a reduced multiplier or a sort of a debuff for the Eagle Runner Knight against infantry to all ranged attacks. So it's added a multiplier against all infantry. So basically the Eagle Runner Knight mainly does well against hand cav. That's what it does. It's got big multipliers against heavy cav. However, it used to do pretty good against all infantry as well, but it had no sort of reduction on the multiplier there, and we can see that the multiplier is now 0.75. So originally I think it was just 1. It was just a standard 1, but now it is 0.75, which is a huge reduction in damage that the Eagle Runners can do. And also the range resistance has been lowered even further as well, so from 25 down to 20%. So it's really, you know, making this not as viable of a unit to always go for. And I guess it does also encourage people to start using and utilizing more Age 2 units like your Coyotes, your Slingers, and also your Spearmen as well, rather than always using the Eagle Runner Knight as your main unit composition. And finally here, Warrior Priest cover mode has been removed. So using the cover mode on it basically really buffs the range resistance, and it would make Warrior Priest harder to kill. You can no longer do that. So there we go. Okay, moving on to British. This is a really big one, and I've seen this recently on certain streams. I think Ezad's stream and Yucati's stream, trying out the Brits in the PUP at the moment. And I've got to say, I think this is a huge overkill. Maybe not huge overkill, but a slight overkill on the British adjustments here, to be honest. And let's have a look at them. So the Manor House cost has been increased to 140 from 135. And the funny thing is they've been messing around with this over the last couple of updates, over the last couple of patches. They've been having it at 140, went to 135, then it went back. And I think it's been going backwards and forwards for quite a while. So now it's gone back up again to 140. The build and kill XP has been adjusted as well for that. And the Ranger here, the damage multiplier versus heavy infantry has been increased for the Ranger unit, which I think is like the new skirm unit that was made for the Brits when there was that Brit overhaul. So you can see here, there's a big sort of lean towards trying to use Rangers. So I think what they're trying to do is the devs want people to try and use Rangers more because we never see them. So they've introduced 2 new cards and they've buffed the Ranger as well. And we can see here, which is an absolutely huge one, 3 settlers being removed in Age 1. Now, whenever you remove settlers in Age 1 or Age 2, it's such a big impact, and I'll tell you why. Settlers are, you know, the earlier you get settlers in game, the bigger the dividend you get from them. So the bigger the investment they are, because they are obviously collecting resources throughout the entire game. And the earlier that you get those settlers, the more powerful it's going to be for you and for your economy throughout the game. So if you remove a 3 settler card in Age 1, which is so early on, it can have a huge impact to the tempo of the Civ and the economy of the Civ as the game goes on. So this is absolutely massive. Now, what they've done is to try and counteract that, they've got the Greenwich time here. Once again, this is another card that was introduced in the overhaul of the Brits, or the sort of rework of the Brits, and it now arrives fast. So it comes in about 2 or 3 seconds, and boom, you've got the Greenwich time. And what the Greenwich time is, it gives you a TP, and I think it enables you to age up slightly faster as well. So we can see that there. Now, something that doesn't make much sense to me, this is another one that doesn't make too much sense. The Virginia Company. So it's now reduces the build bounty of manors to 22 XP up from 18. So it's saying it reduces the build bounty, but it's saying it was up from 18. So people have been telling me this is a nerf because it's reducing the build bounty of manors. Oh, I think I know what it is. Okay. So with the VC card, you get cheaper houses, but the build XP is lower. And what they've done is they've basically increased that reduction of the XP. So yes, this is a nerf to the VC card, which is once again quite unfortunate, but I think I'm seeing certain metas sort of starting to be born around a new British opening because of this big change, and some people are going for the Greenwich time. They're also going for the VC as well, so we might start to see these cards being, you know, used a lot more. I don't know about the Rangers though. I'm not too sure if the Rangers are going to be viable, or whether or not people are still going to stick with longbows. Okay, so that's pretty much that for Brits. Now, China, a prevalent Civ, sort of definitely top 5, potentially top 3 Civ at the moment. And there's been some huge changes, and they have absolutely smacked China into nothing. They've just pummeled it into the ground with nerfs. And I think they've gone a bit too overboard here. And we'll look through them quickly. So let's have a look. So the Disciples, they inflict 2.5 times damage against mercenaries. That's good. Kashyyyks, this is also a buff. So we've got two sort of buffs straight off the bat. The Kashyyyk, which is basically the anti-cav unit that you can get in Age 2 and beyond, that now has the target lock feature, which is really nice. The Summer Palace, this is where it starts to go downhill. The Summer Palace, this is like your standard sort of Age 2 wonder that, you know, 99% of the time you're going to be going for. Rather than it giving you 400 food, it's now going to give you 300. So this is really going to also slow your fast fortress strategy, which is a very sort of standard way of playing China at the moment. The majority of people will go for a fast fortress. This sort of food change is going to really slow you down. And you can see there's an Age 3 change in it as well. However, so that's good. That's going to sort of nerf your Age 3 potential. This is going to nerf your Age 2 potential quite significantly. We can see here train time increases from 25 seconds to 27 on both your Old Han and your Standard and your Ming, but your Mongolian, and this is the big one, this is the one that you get from the castle. Now, I believe this is, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments below, but I believe the Mongolian army you get access to when you build a blockhouse. You get access to the castle units. So if you want to try and train this in Age 2, it's going to impact you quite significantly. You know, the change is 25 seconds to 29. So that's absolutely huge. That's nearly a 20% increase in time for your Mongolian army. So once again, this is going to sort of ruin your tempo a little bit in Age 2 if you want to play Age 2. And also it's going to ruin your tempo if you want to play Age 3. So two big smacks for China. And then it just gets worse. It gets worse. Double-faced armor. Such a great card in Age 3 to really improve the range resistance of your heavy cav units. That is going to be chopped in half. Even worse than that. So it's saying that it's now 5% and it used to be 10.5%. So that is a 50% reduction. That's a slash right in half there for range resistance. Repelling volley, a very sort of popular card to use. You can see here the Chukanu and the Arquebusier. The damage no longer gets improved by this card. Absolutely massive. So this used to improve the base damage of the Chukanu and the Arquebusier, which meant that these units were okay in mass against heavy cav. So they used to sort of slightly hold their own. They used to do okay against the heavy cav units, but now that's just going to be non-existent. You know, and China isn't the best against heavy cav civs as it stands, and this is just going to hit them even more. And we can see here it says both units now inflict just the one-time plus 1 times bonus damage against all ranged shock infantry instead of only Eagle Runner Knights. So that's, I guess, a slight buff there. It's not just going to affect, it's not just going to be a bonus against Eagle Runners, it's going to be a good sort of thing against all ranged shock infantry. So, I don't know, but definitely a real big hit there. Once again, another sort of popular card, the Beiyang army in Age 3, where you get 8 Step Riders and 8 Kashyyyks. It's now going to cost you an extra 50 food. We now do have a slight sort of, actually quite a significant buff here on the Iron Cap Prince's army. So maybe a card that you might want to actually have in your deck now. It will send 12 Changdao swordsmen and 2 flamethrowers, and it now only costs 800 food to do so. So before it was 1,000 food. So that could be maybe an alternative. Rather than going for the Beiyang, you could go for the Iron Cap Prince, where you get a decent amount of pike and flamethrowers. Finally, you get an extra Arquebusier in an Age 4 shipment. Nothing huge. So a real big sort of potential overnerf here of China, I would say. Moving quickly on to Dutch here, we have the bank. This is a big one, guys. Hit point reduction from 4,000 to 3,500. So that is over a 10%. That's like a 12% reduction on HP for the bank, which is kind of big because Dutch rely on their banks at the start to kind of wall themselves in and to sort of start a turtle game. With these banks now having reduced hit points, it allows sort of more sort of rushy civs to be able to get the win against Dutch early on, which I quite like. So I think that's quite an apt change there, me personally. And there's some further card changes here. I'm not going to go into those too much. Moving on to Ethiopians, we can see one of the big things for Ethiopia is this one right here, ladies and gents. They have put a hand infantry combat card, which improves the Shotter Warrior HP and damage by 15%. Now, Ethiopia, one of their best units is the Shotter Warrior, and it's a little broken because they basically do bonus damage to all kinds of infantry overall. They do the most damage to light infantry, but they also do just a base damage to any kind of infantry, which makes them pretty crazy. They've got decent pathing. They've got good sort of rate of attack as well. And this on top of that, I think is too much. I think this is too much. I think maybe 10% as a minimum or as a maximum, sorry. But I think the Shotter Warrior needs to be adjusted, whether that's the resources required to produce them. Something like that needs to change. Also, the Oromo Warriors, they're quite good as well. We've got an extra unit that you can get in Age 3 and Age 4. Nice buff there to Ethiopia. And another big one, guys, is the villagers. As I mentioned before with the Brits and how crucial villager shipments are in Age 1 and Age 2, we have 4 now being added to Ethiopia. I quite like this because it's going to give Ethiopia some kind of Age 2 potential. Rather than thinking always to go to the Age 3 or to do the semi-FF, we're going to see potentially more of an Age 2 orientated play, because that 4 villagers is going to be very crucial to build some decent eco earlier on. And we can see some units here. We have the Aben now heals artillery and elephants much slower. So that means the Sebastopol mortar, it's going to be a lot slower, which is a decent adjustment, I think. The Oromo Warrior, the pop cost has been reduced and the melee attack speed has been slowed down. So yeah, a buff and a nerf, not too bad there. And finally, the big Sebastopol mortar. We can see here that the multiplier has been increased here for solid and explosive shots, and against buildings as well has been increased, and the movement speed has been increased slightly. So decent buff all around there for the mortar. So Ethiopia, I think, is going to be going up a little bit higher on the list. Let's have a quick look at the French. Nothing too huge here, to be honest. Apart from this one, actually, the ancient regime here now also delivers a royal embassy wagon, and it's moved to Age 1. So I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have, but I'm sure we'll see that further in once it's been released. Another big one here, guys, is the Aztecs. Now, I think the Aztecs have had a really tough time on this PUP or the upcoming patch. Very similar to China and also to Brit as well. I think more for Brit, because Aztec are a relatively decent civ. I don't think they were overpowered, and having all these changes here is going to hit them quite hard. So let's have a quick look at it. The Landwehr here, that is obviously quite a buff there to the Landwehr, but I mean, how often do you actually use that for the Aztecs? Never really heard of it. The Landwehr? That's not, I thought that's for Germany. Okay, interesting. Wait, this is Germany. Right, guys, this is actually the Germans. They've labeled it as the Aztecs. I was getting very confused here. So, yeah, this is the Germans. I think overall, the Germans have had some serious sort of improvements on this patch. I don't know whether this made them ridiculously OP. I don't know. I've just seen a few games of the higher level players playing it, and it seems pretty darn good. And I don't have a huge understanding of Germany, but there's a lot here. So let's try and see if we can try and figure it out. The Landwehr multiplier has been increased against light cav. That's nice. It's a nice buff to try and use the Landwehr unit. Cards, we have the band of Landsknecht mercenaries. So the cost has been reduced to 250 down from 400. That's absolutely huge. The Prince Electors, that's been moved to Age 1, and it also sends a Royal Embassy wagon. This is a really big card as well. I think I've been seeing quite a few of the higher players use, so you can get an early Royal Embassy wagon. Witch Hammer in Age 2 now also reduces the population cost of outlaw type units. So once again, sort of moving more towards outlaw mercenary, which, you know, Germany are quite well known for. Circle Army in Age 3 increased the unit counts to deliver 13 Brunswickers, 8 mounted infantry, and 5 Saxon cuirassiers, up from 5, 4, and 2. What? This is insane. I mean, yeah, it costs you 250 food and 250 wood, but it's an age 3 card, and it used to just give you 5, 4, and 2. And it's giving you 13, 8, and 5. And it's now properly classified as a mercenary shipment and affected by mercenary loyalty. Wow, that is huge. Is that just me, or that card is absolutely massive? So I think definitely Germany here has got some pretty big buffs here. We've also got another card here that there's been changed to enable vet landvers. So they kind of want to start people to try and use landvers more. We can see here another card costing 500 food, but also delivers 8 prints. Can't even pronounce that, guys, not gonna lie. Okay, so it's basically the war wagon card we can see here has been also changed. Wow. Okay, so the tempo of Germany is definitely going to be way more when they get into age 3, especially if they want to go down more of the mercenary route, because you can get mercenary loyalty, which, you know, will just improve this Circle Army card even further. Absolutely insane. Right, moving on. Howd, nothing really much going on there, to be honest, guys. Hauser as well, nothing sort of crazy. There is this Hauser Bakwai. I don't even know what this card does, guys, not going to be honest, but that is quite a significant change there, only costing 500 influence now. If we go down to Inca. So Inca, not a ridiculously strong civ at the moment, and it looks like they've had a few changes, most likely to the treaty area of things. So a villager build limit has now been put in place at 90, and it was originally 99. The Chincharav range has been reduced and now doesn't really do a huge amount of damage at all to villagers, so that's another nerf. However, this is nice. The jungle bowmen have a line of sight increase from 18 to 20. Very nice. The Macemen population cost reduction, that's very good. That's very good. And that's also going to give them a buff for treaty as well going into it. But that's very nice, because I thought Macemen being pop cost of 3 was kind of crazy. But that's nice to see. And finally, the Plume Spearman is now correctly classified as a pikeman unit and archaic. Nice. And then finally, we can see some card changes. So 5 Mason, the food cost has been removed. Okay, so maybe they want people to try and maybe start using Macemen a little bit with Inca. And we can see the architecture has been reduced in age 2. That's quite a big card. So HP reduction there on that. The Wamani, I'm not too sure what the Wamani card is. I've got to be honest, guys, I'm not too sure. Okay, so the Wamani ships 2 Kalanka Dravois, and Kalanka units can be trained. So wow, that's huge. Actually, that's actually quite good for Inca. So you're able to actually play further into age 2 with getting age 3 units involved in age 2, and it only costs you now 250 wood. So that's pretty big. And also now, of course, we have Macemen with a population reduction. So maybe using Macemen earlier might be something that you could potentially do. Who knows? We can see there 2-pack Rebellion card. Not going to go into that too much. And I think that's pretty much it, guys, really, that I want to touch upon with Inca. Now, it's one of my main civs or favorite civs, which is the Indians, and a lot of people have been complaining that they're very, very strong. I've got to say they're probably top 3, to be honest. Very strong civ with the recent Kani Marta change, and we can see here that something has been reverted. The Kani Marti aura effect has been reduced to 10% from 15, so that's quite significant. Something that I don't understand, guys, is this whole Rajput change here with Indians. Now, I think, once again, I think the developers want people to start to try and use Rajputs more. So it looks like there's going to be sort of widespread buffs here for Rajputs. And we can see here the cost has been reduced for them. So it's only 90 food and 35 wood now. The building damage has been increased. Look at that siege. 25 to 35 damage. That is absolutely insane. That is like 40% increase. That's how wild that is. In percentage terms, that siege is insane. Melee damage has been reduced, however, but the rate of fire has been increased, and you also have changes to the Rajput Mansabdar unit. And something that I don't really understand here, guys, is a sepoy change. Why? So we can see melee damage increased to 18, anti-cavalry multiplier has been reduced. Look at how huge that is. from 3 to 1.75. So what this says to me is that the developers want people to stop using the Sepoy Gurkha combination, because Sepoys are very good in melee against hand cavalry, as they should be, because they are the basic multipliers or the basic counters. But they want people probably to start maybe trying to use Rajputs more or Zambaraks. I don't know, but they want people to stop using Sepoys for, majority of enemy compositions. So it's kind of strange. Anti-shock infantry multiplier has been reduced as well, and the building damage has been decreased. So sieging with Sepoys is going to be more difficult, which is unfortunate for Age 2 play. So maybe we're going to have to try and start to use Rajputs, for God's sake. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest. We got foreign trading companies, though. This has been moved to Age 3, and there's an export trickle has been improved on it as well. I'm not too sure what this card is. I don't think I've ever used it. I'd have to have a look at it. Indian gunpowder is one that's been recently put in with a rework to India. And now this also improves Sepoy hit points and damage by 10%. So maybe that's a viable card now for Age 4. Something interesting here under technologies is the levy. So if we go down a bit, we can see the levy here for the Ottoman consulate. So before, the levy button on the Ottoman consulate was the militiaman. I can't remember what they're called for the Ottomans because they changed the name, but it was a militiaman. They were very, very good in holding against kind of certain pushes and aggro that you can get from your enemy. Now it's going to be replaced with Aztecs. And Aztecs are basically like ranged pikemen. They're kind of bowmen that are good against heavy cav. So I don't know how I feel about this. I think in some circumstances it'll be good. Like if you're getting raided, you can pop some Aztecs. They will be a lot better against cav for you. But when you're getting pushed by a huge force, like if you're getting pushed by Spain, I think Aztecs are not going to be as effective as having like militiamen, for example. So yeah, not 100% on that, to be honest. So there we go. That's India. Italians have had some really interesting sort of changes. I think overall you could say potentially a buff. They've got 2 new cards here. A great Age 2 card, depositing 1,000 food into a Lombard, which will just give you coin and wood over time. That could be quite nice. The Bersagliere building itself. Oh no, sorry. The Bersagliere unit, the range resistance has been increased to 25% from 20%. So that's the militia. So that's kind of crazy, actually. The Bersagliere unit's quite a good unit, but now it's been buffed even further. So who knows? Italians might be quite good. Japanese, interesting card here. So the 4 shrine wagon that's never really been used is now giving you an extra wagon. So it's giving you a total of 2 because you can send the shipment twice. I don't know if this is going to be a big thing. I have seen Izad play a few games as Japan with this. I don't know how good it's going to be, but it's definitely a buff to the card. However, there's some things that don't really make much sense to me, like the Naginata hit point card has now been reduced. I don't think that was really necessary given the space that Japan was in. Also, we can see close combat as well. This is a big one. Reduce hit point improvement to 10% from 15. And melee damage now increase against shock infantry has been reduced. So once again, another nerf. Don't really understand that, to be honest. And yeah, they're the 2 main things I would take away from Japan. Not looking the best, but I don't know, the shrine wagon thing might be quite good. We shall see. Now the Maltese, kind of a strange one with the Maltese, to be honest. The shipments here added a 2% penalty to their shipment curve to balance the hit points per card bonus. So you're going to get cards in a little bit slower because of the HP per card bonus. You do have a new card though, 5 Sentinels in H2. That might be quite nice. However, the Wigner Court construction, such a crucial card for the economy of Malta, has been nerfed. So we can see here it's dropped from 20% to 15%, and also the gather rate is from 30 to 25. So overall, a nerf to the eco of Malta. And the steel bolts, such a crucial card again in Age 3 for your crossbows. The siege damage has been reduced significantly, 16 to 10, which is absolutely wild. So it means that you're going to have to think about more artillery units now actually helping you to take down buildings rather than just a massive crossbowman. I think that was kind of a problem. Whether or not the reduction should be that, I don't know. The Wigner Corps is kind of huge, and the Sentinels is kind of nice. So, I don't know. I can't say for sure where Malta stand. I think overall, though, it's looking like, definitely, it's looking like a nerf there. Okay, so the Ottomans have had some huge changes, and it's quite clear that once again, the developers want to steer us to start using Azeps more. They want us to start using Azeps. They want us to start using Rajputs, maybe Landvers as well, like I've mentioned previously. And it looks like it's the case here. You can see that they've released 3 new cards here for Azeps, and also they have adjusted the cost of the Azeps, so it's not as much wood, but slightly more food. So overall, it's going to be quicker still for you to get the resources required to get your Azep. The Abbas Gunner, such a really powerful unit at the moment, kind of crazy. Their range resistance has been decreased. Personally, I would think about maybe reducing their rate of fire because they are an insane unit when in mass. They can like one-shot falconets because of their siege damage. It's kind of mental. And we can see here as we go down, there is this card that buffs Abbas Gunners, and the hit point improvement has been reduced from 25 to 20%, so it's not buffing them as much. The Nizam Fusiliers respects population space. And if we go down a little bit, there is something here. Where is it? There's something for the Nizam Fusiliers. I think it gives you 20. There it is. The New Order Infantry. In Age 3, if you get the Palace Intrigue card in Age 2, this is quite a big thing where people will go Nizam Fusiliers, and it's kind of insane. You now get 20 instead of 15. I think this is absolutely wild. I don't think it's potentially needed, to be honest with you. I understand where they're coming from with the whole Azep thing. But yeah, I think overall, I think that Ottoman have most likely had a slight nerf potentially, but I don't think their nerf has been enough. I think they should have been nerfed a little bit more with the Abbas Gunners, in my opinion. Moving on to the ports, the Fatorius card, a brand new card that was recently introduced, has had a slight change. You no longer get XP generation from your town centers, but you get more food, wood, and coins. So it makes it more of an eco style play. Potentially, you could play maybe a little bit more in Age 2 now with ports, with having 2 town centers generating more resources. Might make Age 2 play a little bit more viable for the ports. Unfortunately, the Russians haven't really had any huge sort of changes. They do have a new kind of civ bonus. You can get 210 population with them, so that makes it pretty good for treaty players. And it's saying it kind of offsets the weakness of the Russian units. But I'm going to be honest, guys, like getting max pop with Russia, in most games, I struggle with it because it has to go quite late on. So overall, and especially Russia's kind of a rushing civ, right? And they're constantly fighting. So your pop space is never going to be around the 200 unless you turtle a lot more or play a lot into the longer game. So for me, not a huge one for me. Definitely for treaty players, though. And then there's 12 Oldenburg allies. There's fixing a bug there as well. So there's some changes here for Spanish. 20 pikemen has actually been removed from Age 4. Kind of a big one there. And there's a few others. I'm not going to go into too much detail around that. Swedes, we can see torps have actually been increased in cost, and the build time is significant now. So it's 12.5 seconds. It's been changed to 16 seconds, which is kind of wild there. XP values have been changed. So a bit of a nerf there for the Swedes. And we can see the hacker pellet here. A few more changes. Siege damage has been reduced significantly on them. Negative damage multipliers against infantry and villagers has been actually improved. So that's actually a slight buff there. and inflicts range bonus damage only against hand shock infantry instead of all shock infantry. Interesting. So they won't do well against Eagle Runner Knights because Eagle Runner Knights are ranged shock infantry. So interesting one there. That's the Swedes. United States, big one here. Scottish immigrants is moving back to H2, guys. Like originally it was in H2. I then made a video and I moaned about it, and a few other people did, and then it moved to H3. But now they're moving it back to H2, guys. They just can't make up their mind. It now costs 400 coin, and it no longer ships a Highlander by default. So I think, you know, it means it doesn't just ship one if you have no buildings for it. But yeah, we'll see how that one goes. United States Marines, they can be healed. Siege damage has been improved from Minutemen, has been halved. Buffalo Soldiers has been, I don't know what these cards do. Oh, the coffee mill gun, I know what that one does. That one basically improves the Gatling gun so it fires constantly. And that's been moved to age 4, which is nice to see because that Gatling cheesy strategy was just awful. Moving it into age 4 seems to make sense to me, so that's quite a nice change. Also, this is fantastic. The Gatling gun damage multiplier against cavalry has now been changed. There's been many times that I've played India and I've got Delhi, I've got sowers, I go in onto the Gatling guns and the Gatling guns just melt them. You know, that shouldn't happen, you know, because that's their counter, essentially. That shouldn't happen. So we can see here, it's now changed to 0.25 from 0.5. So it's halved it, which is fantastic to see. And also shock infantry, a big one here. So very good for coyote runners and stuff like that. That's a big change, 0.5 to 0.15. So a big one there. And also settler has been increased to 90. The total settlers you can do. So a good buff for treaty players as well there. And there's a lot on revolutions. I'm not going to go into those too much, guys. They are some revolutionary changes there for you. So that is everything, ladies and gents, on the PUP. Absolutely extensive. I think they've just done a little bit too much. I'm going to be honest. I think they've done a little bit too much. And the thing is, when you make this many changes, it's very hard to try and track back on what might need to be reverted, adjusted, when you make this many changes. I personally would have just liked to maybe had a look at the top 3 civs and the bottom 3, maybe make some adjustments to those to try and improve. For example, maybe making the nerfs to China that we've seen, I think they're a little bit overboard, maybe potentially. Brit, I think, is a little bit crazy as well. And India as well is kind of a strange one with the Rajputs, not going to lie. I don't know what that's about, to be honest. I kind of get it, I kind of don't. But there we go, guys. One thing I would like to say is that Revnak and I think other high-level players have put a kind of petition or something on the forum where they're basically advising on things that should be reverted or adjusted or changed before the PUP is actually live. So let's just have a quick look at that. Okay, guys, this is the post right here. So it's the competitive community feedback to the March PUP. So we can see here that basically what they've done is it's the FPL and ESOC competitive players here. They've kind of had a big discussion around certain sort of changes to the PUP that I've just gone through. And you can see they've pulled out and cited certain areas like the Brits, for example, with the Manor House change. And they've made some comments in italics down below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also link this as well. Have a look at it. Make sure that you like it, support it if you agree with it, of course, or the majority of it. And hopefully some of these can be changed because I think they're a little bit too excessive and they could actually kill off a lot of the kind of competitive play at the moment because I think some of them I just don't understand and they seem a bit overboard. However, some of them I do sort of understand. I do get some of the changes, but I think it's just a little bit too much. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know down in the comments below what you think of this, what you think needs to be stripped out, what you think needs to be added before the actual patch becomes live. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next video or the next stream. Catch you later, guys. Bye.